Hello everyone, my name is Scott and I'm going to be talking about my project paper. The three things I'm going to be talking about will be my argument, my primary sources, and the point that I'm trying to get across with my project paper. So the argument that I'm going to be talking about will be the hardships in rejected assimilation. And I say rejected assimilation because there are people who want to come to America and become American, but they're rejected because of the things that they brought with them to America. Whether it's the Irish coming in and bringing their religion and are rejected for that, or because of other immigrants who come into our country and are rejected because they're simply not white at all. My first primary source is the Chinese immigration pamphlets, which were derived from the California State Library. They are original handwritten text from 1856 that highlight the experiences of Chinese people when they came to America and saw a lot of opposition. There were a lot of people who viewed them as economic and social threats because they were coming in and they wanted to work. They were willing to work in jobs that Americans didn't want to do. That created somewhat of an opposition, like competition for Irish in California because they were already the ones doing the things that Americans didn't want to do. So even the Irish had opposition to the Chinese people immigrating into California. One guy that I wanted to focus was Quang Ching Ling. He wrote a bunch of letters about how it was very hypocritical for the Americans to see Chinese people as evil beings, because he mentioned that during the time Chinese people were hired to do important jobs. They were hired to build the railroads. They were hired to do very important construction jobs that were important to the whole area. Not to mention important jobs as in Americans even hired Chinese people to cook for them. So there was this hypocrisy going around where if why would Americans think of Chinese people to being evil beings and that they should never be American and that we should all kick them out, yet they would trust us to hire be hired as cooks for them, and so there's this huge hypocrisy questioning about in his letters. And he also explained about how Chinese people were barred from owning property and mining, and they weren't allowed to mine for gold. There was no real benefit being in California anymore because California, everyone was rushing to California at that time because there was the gold rush. And if Chinese people were barred from owning their own property or even going out to look for gold, what's the point in being in California in the first place? The letters of Quang Ching Ling also mentioned about anti-Chinese. There was a anti-Chinese movement set up by a guy named Dennis Kearney. He inspired people to look for Chinese people in California in the streets and beat them up. Make sure that they are felt they have the feeling that they are not welcome in the streets of California. So there's the hardship of for Chinese people in that era is that these are they're not welcome here, even though they're here to work and they're getting paid wages and they could live here. The overall atmosphere is no, you cannot be American, you cannot be here with us, you have to go, and if not, then we're going to make up some law and we're going to find a way to make you go. So the next primary source is California as I Saw It, which is a general collection of first-person narratives. It focuses on Mexicans who lived in California, before the gold rush. And then, there are handwritten notes, newspaper articles, and photographs of how, or of what California was before the gold rush. And then what happened after, or during and after the gold rush. That's how California began to develop during that time. There was witness encounters of white Americans coming into the town and building mines, farms, and other development that was brought during the gold rush. The Mexicans that lived in California wanted to be part of American society. They were living in these towns, born and raised, and then all of a sudden, white people start coming in and building and all these different buildings, and adding into all this extra development in their towns, and they want to be part of it as well, but they're rejected because they were different. They were not seen as white people. They were not seen as a regular American. They were seen as just someone, just being there. They were not really a part of American society. So it was I saw it as more of a highlight of the rejection of assimilation during that time, and with an excusable reason, to where it was kind of part of manifest destiny. White people were going in on a westward expansion and taking everyone, taking everything as theirs for granted as well. And so when there were, people who were already living at those, during that expansion, it didn't matter because it was whites now. It's not theirs anymore. So the point being is that, there were Mexicans living there. They wanted to be part of American society now that they're supposedly part of America, but they were rejected for it because they were not white. My third primary source is called Algonado and the Revolution in 1896, which is a documentary focusing on the Philippine Revolution of 1896. So there's this General Algonado who fought alongside with the United States against Spain during the Spanish-American War. He was led to think that once this war was over, Philippines will be part of the United States. But after the war, Philippines really did become a territory of the United States, but they were not the General Algonado's mentality was, now that we're part of the United States, all the Filipinos living in the Philippines will become American as well, and we will be able to reap the same benefits as normal white Americans in the United States. But once the war was over, they saw more of the reality of it. Filipinos were not considered Americans anymore, or at all. They were just considered as people living on American territory. They were treated like native Mexicans residing in California before the gold rush, before California became a state. Filipinos there began to perceive Americans the same way as they did with the Spanish, when they were colonized, as these people are just there to take advantage of us. So as a result, they revolted and fought for their own independence. But the point being is that in this primary source is that they were being rejected when they all want to become American. They all want to be be assimilated to American society, but they were instead rejected, and it was also because they were not white. Lastly, my last primary source is a narrative of the mutiny on board His Majesty's ship Bounty and the subsequent voyage, which is a written account by William Blight about the hardships of the Irish sailing through the seas. The message about this is that immigration to America wasn't easy at all. There, there, there. It spoke about accounts of where they had to fish for food. Severe weather, really knocked them off course. It took almost a couple months actually to get to America. How did they ration water? Being in a couple months in the sea, you gotta have to stay hydrated. He talked about how there was hardships even for the Irish, not just settling in America, but also the on the way to America. And then he also talked about how living in America wasn't as easy as initially thought as well. There are hardships that the Irish faced when they came to the United States, and William Blight pretty much wrote about how they struggled together as unity or unison to not fight off, but more of like warding off or just getting through and getting by life as an Irish American. So my point to get across is that the legacy of American immigration is full of ignorance and rejection. We are all immigrants one way or another, but we are led to think that we are living in the best place in the world because we are thought to think that we are the best. Those who want to come here and pursue the American dream are different, to us, and we reject them. Those who are not here yet, but want or have stated that they want to come here, we try to make it harder for them to be like us. So, even though we are all immigrants, we see those who are coming in, very that like recently coming in, and we become very ignorant and reject them. We try to make sure that they don't feel comfortable being around us. And those who want to immigrate here, we want to make sure that they are not, there's the message that they will not be accepted in our society. And I feel like we are immigrants. We were born immigrants. We were or like not born immigrants, but we're we were immigrants from the very beginning, and yet we are looking back at other immigrants and saying that you guys can't be here because you are different from us. So it's pretty much like our way of saying we kind of hate each other or hate ourselves, but because we are different, or we have we're hypocrites. The bottom line is we're hypocrites, and that we are we kind of we show that ignorance and rejection to others because of that. So we are hypocrites, and yeah. Anyway, I hope that my paper will be very awesome, and let's fight it through. Thank you for listening.